My name is Audrey. Most people think graduation is a day for family celebration. For me, it was the day I finally realized exactly where I stood. 3 weeks before the ceremony, my parents looked me in the eye and told me they weren't coming. They had booked a luxury resort trip with my sister instead. They said she was stressed and needed a break. They didn't even ask how I felt about graduating alone. I didn't cry. I didn't beg them to change their tickets. I didn't scream. I simply made a decision. When the big day came, the cameras were rolling. The ceremony was being live-streamed. My parents were watching from their hotel room, expecting to see me walk across the stage alone. They expected my success to look lonely. But they were wrong. When the announcer called for the family who had supported me through everything, the spotlight didn't land on empty chairs. It landed on 2 people who actually loved me. And as the crowd cheered, my parents realized something terrible from thousands of miles away. They realized they had been replaced. And the whole world was watching. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Audrey. I am 22 years old, and I live in a quiet suburban town in America. To understand why I didn't cry when my parents skipped my graduation, you have to understand the house I grew up in. You have to understand the invisible lines that were drawn on the floor the day I was born. In most families, love is supposed to be like sunshine. It's supposed to shine on everyone equally. But in my house, love was like a spotlight. And the person controlling the spotlight was my mother, and the only person she ever pointed it at was my sister, Chloe. I was the background child. I don't mean that I was abused in a way that would leave bruises. I wasn't beat. I was fed. I had clothes. If you looked at our family from the outside, you would see a perfectly normal suburban life. You would see a nice house with a 2-car garage. You would see family vacations to the beach. You would see Sunday dinners. But if you lived inside that house, you would feel the coldness. You would feel the silence that surrounded me, compared to the noise and warmth that surrounded Chloe. Chloe was 2 years older than me. From the moment I can remember, she was the center of the universe. She was louder, she was more demanding, she was sensitive. That was the word my parents always used. SHH, be quiet, Audrey, your sister is feeling sensitive today. Don't upset Chloe, you know she's sensitive. Sensitive was a code word. It meant that Chloe's feelings were the most important thing in the world, and my feelings didn't matter at all. I remember a specific Saturday when I was 6 years old. It was summer. The air was hot and sticky. My dad had bought us new bicycles. Well, that's not exactly true. He had bought Chloe a new bicycle. It was pink and shiny. It had white tassels on the handlebars and a white basket on the front. It was beautiful. My new bike was Chloe's old one. It was rusted on the chain. The seat had a tear in it. The paint was scratched. I didn't complain. I was 6. I was just happy to have a bike. I remember running out to the driveway, excited to ride. But then the drama started. Chloe looked at her brand new, shiny pink bike. She looked at the tassels, and then she started to scream. "It's the wrong pink," she wailed. She threw herself onto the concrete driveway. "I wanted hot pink. This is baby pink. It's for babies. I hate it." My mom came running out of the house like the house was on fire. My dad dropped the wrench he was holding. "Oh, honey, don't cry," my mom said, crouching down next to Chloe. She stroked Chloe's hair. "It's a beautiful bike. It's the best one they had." "I hate it," Chloe screamed, kicking the tire of the new bike. "Take it back. I won't ride it." My dad looked stressed. He wiped sweat from his forehead. "Chloe, sweetie, the store is closed now. Just try it. It cost a lot of money." "No," Chloe yelled. I stood there holding the handlebars of the rusty hand-me-down bike. I was waiting for them to look at me. I was waiting for them to say, "Audrey, how is your bike? Are you ready to ride?" They never looked. I got on my bike. I was small and the bike was a little too big for me. I started to pedal down the driveway. I wanted to show them I could ride. I wanted them to see me. I gathered speed. I turned the handlebars, but the front wheel was loose. The bike wobbled. I lost my balance. Crash. I fell hard onto the concrete. The metal pedal scraped all the way down my shin. It ripped my skin. Blood started to well up immediately. It hurt. It hurt so bad that the air left my lungs. I started to cry. "Mom, Dad," my mom turned her head. She looked at me sitting on the ground with blood on my leg. But she didn't run to me. She didn't look scared for me. She looked annoyed. "Audrey, please," she snapped. "Can't you see we are dealing with a crisis here? Your sister is hysterical. Stop making noise." "But I'm bleeding," I sobbed. "Go inside and put a Band-Aid on it," my dad said, his voice impatient. "Don't be a baby, Chloe is really upset right now." I stopped crying. Not because it stopped hurting, but because I was shocked. My sister was crying because she didn't like the color of a brand new gift. I was crying because I was bleeding, and they chose to comfort her. I picked myself up off the ground. I limped into the house. I found the bathroom. I washed the blood off my leg with cold water. It stung. I found a Band-Aid and put it on. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and looked at my reflection in the mirror. I was 6 years old, but I looked older. I looked tired. That was the day I learned the rule: pain doesn't matter, only volume matters, and Chloe is always louder. This pattern repeated itself every single year. When Christmas came, the tree would be full of presents, but the distribution was always uneven. Chloe would get the big-ticket items, the gaming consoles, the designer clothes, the jewelry. I would get socks. I would get school supplies. One year I got a calculator. "You're the smart one," my dad said with a shrug when I opened it. "We thought you'd use it." Chloe opened a box with a new leather jacket. She frowned. "I wanted the black one. This is dark brown." "We can exchange it, honey," Mom said quickly. "We'll go tomorrow." I looked at my calculator. I didn't say anything. I just put it in my pile of socks and notebooks. The hierarchy was physical too. At the dinner table, Chloe sat next to Mom. I sat on the end, near the kitchen door. It was my job to get up and get the salt if someone needed it. It was my job to refill the water pitcher. "Audrey, grab the butter," Dad would say, not even looking up from his plate. "Audrey, we need napkins," Mom would say while listening to Chloe tell a long, boring story about her day. I was the waitress. Chloe was the customer. My parents were the managers who made sure the customer was happy. I tried to get their attention in other ways. I tried to be funny. I tried to tell jokes. One night, when I was 10, I came to the dinner table with a joke I had heard at school. I was excited to tell it. "Hey Dad," I said, "knock knock." "Not now, Audrey," Mom cut in. "Chloe is telling us about the girl who was mean to her in gym class." "But it's really funny," I said. "Audrey, don't be rude," Dad said sharply. "Let your sister speak, she had a hard day." I looked at Chloe. She was smirking. She wasn't sad. She was enjoying the audience. She knew she had the power. She knew she could suck all the air out of the room and leave none for me. So I stopped telling jokes. I stopped trying to be funny. I became quiet. I became the girl who sat at the end of the table and ate her peas in silence. I spent a lot of time in my room. My room was my sanctuary. It was the only place where I didn't feel like a second-class citizen. I read books. I wrote stories. I created worlds in my head where I was the main character. In my stories, I was a princess or a warrior or a spy. I was important. People listened to me, but then I would have to open my door and walk back out into the real world. The worst part wasn't the big events. It was the daily, small erosions of my self-worth. It was the way Mom would brush Chloe's hair for 20 minutes, talking softly to her, braiding it carefully. But when I asked for help with my hair, she would hand me the brush and say, "You're big enough to do it yourself." It was the way Dad would go to every single one of Chloe's soccer games, even though she mostly stood on the field and picked grass. But when I joined the debate team, he never came to a single match. "Debate is boring, Audrey," he told me. "It's just people arguing. I get enough of that at work." "But I'm the captain," I said. "That's nice," he said, turning back to the TV. I learned to carry everything alone. I learned that if I wanted something done, I had to do it myself. I learned that if I was sad, I had to comfort myself. By the time I was 12, I was basically an adult. I did my own laundry. I made my own lunches. I kept track of my own dentist appointments. My parents bragged about this to their friends. "Audrey is so easy," they would say at parties. "She's on autopilot, we never have to worry about her." They said it like it was a compliment, but it felt like an insult. It felt like they were saying, "Thank goodness we don't have to waste any energy on her. We need all of it for Chloe." I remember looking at other families and feeling confused. I saw my friend Sarah's mom hug her for no reason. I saw Sarah's dad carry her backpack when she was tired. I asked Sarah once, "Do you have to pay your parents back when they buy you clothes?" Sarah looked at me like I was crazy. "What? No, they're my parents." "Oh," I said, I thought that was normal." It wasn't normal. None of it was normal, but it was my life, and I was stuck in it. I was the ghost in my own house. I was the extra in the movie of Chloe's life. And I was starting to realize that no matter what I did, no matter how good or smart or quiet I was, the script was never going to change. As I transitioned from a child into a teenager, the dynamic in the house didn't get better. It got sharper. It got more expensive. And the consequences became more painful. High school is a time when you are supposed to figure out who you are. For me, high school was a 4-year confirmation that I didn't matter. Chloe was 2 years older, so we were in high school together for 2 years. Those 2 years were hell. Chloe was popular, but in a messy way. She was always in the middle of some drama. She was breaking up with boys, or fighting with her best friends, or getting in trouble with teachers for talking in class. Every night at the dinner table, it was the Chloe show. "Mom, you won't believe what Jessica said to me. Dad, I need $80 for a new dress for the dance because I hate all my old ones. The teacher is so mean, she gave me a C just because I didn't turn in the homework." My parents ate it up. They were obsessed with her life. They spent hours counseling her, reassuring her, giving her money. Meanwhile, I was quietly excelling, and nobody cared. I remember my sophomore year. I had worked incredibly hard on a science fair project. I had spent months growing bacteria cultures in the garage. I had built a display board that was perfect. I had rehearsed my presentation until I could say it in my sleep. The science fair was on a Thursday night. 2 days before the fair, I reminded my parents. "Hey guys," I said, "don't forget, Thursday night, 7 p.m., in the gym, my project is in row 4. My dad looked at his calendar on the wall. He frowned. "Thursday," he said. "Yes," I said. My stomach tightened. I knew that look. "Thursday is the night Chloe wants us to take her to that concert," Mom said. "The tickets were her birthday present." "Remember, but the concert doesn't start until 9, I argued. "The science fair is at 7, you could come for 30 minutes and then go." My mom sighed. It was a long, dramatic sigh. "Audrey, it's an hour drive to the concert venue. We want to get dinner beforehand. We want to make it a special night for your sister." "So you're not coming?" I asked. "We can't be in 2 places at once," Dad said. "Bring your ribbon home. We'll look at it then." "If I win a ribbon," I said softly. "You'll do great," Mom said, waving her hand. "You're so smart, you don't need us holding your hand." I went to the science fair alone. I stood by my display board for 3 hours. Judges came by and asked me questions. I answered them perfectly. I smiled. I pointed to my graphs. But every time I looked up, I saw other kids with their parents. I saw dads pointing proudly at their kids' projects. I saw moms taking videos. I stood there in my blazer, feeling like a fool. At the end of the night, they announced the winners. First place, Audrey Miller. I walked up to the stage. The principal shook my hand. He handed me a blue rosette ribbon and a certificate. "Where are your folks?" the principal asked me kindly, looking out at the crowd. "I want to shake your dad's hand." I felt my face burn with shame. I had to lie. I couldn't tell the truth. I couldn't say they are eating appetizers at a restaurant before my sister's concert. "They're sick," I lied. "Stomach flu, both of them." "Oh, that's a shame," the principal said. "Well, tell them congratulations." I drove myself home. I put the blue ribbon on the kitchen counter. When my parents got home at 1 a.m., they didn't even notice it. They were too busy talking about how much fun the concert was and how cute Chloe looked. The ribbon sat there for 3 days until it got moved to a pile of mail and eventually thrown in a drawer. They never asked me about the fair. Not once. That was the pattern. My successes were invisible. Chloe's failures were emergencies. The financial difference was the most insulting part. When Chloe turned 16, my parents bought her a car. It wasn't a brand new car, but it was a nice, reliable sedan. They put a big red bow on it. They took pictures of her screaming with joy in the driveway. "We want you to be safe," Dad said, handing her the keys. "We want you to have independence." 2 years later, I turned 16. I got my license on my birthday. I came home, holding the plastic card, feeling a tiny spark of hope. Maybe I would get a car too. Or maybe just permission to use the family car. There was no car in the driveway. "Good job on passing the test," Dad said. He was reading the newspaper. "So, can I drive to school now?" I asked. Dad laughed. "Drive what? I need my truck for work. Your mom needs her car." "What about Chloe's car?" I asked. "She's at college, she didn't take it." "Chloe might need it when she comes home for weekends," Mom said. "We don't want you putting miles on it, it's her car." "So how do I get to school?" I asked. "The bus," Dad said. "Or you can walk, it's only 2 miles." "But Chloe got a car," I said. The unfairness was choking me. "You bought her a car." "We had more money then," Dad lied. I knew it was a lie. He had just bought a new boat. "Times are tighter now, Audrey. Don't be ungrateful. We feed you, we house you." Ungrateful. That was their favorite word for me whenever I pointed out the inequality. So I got a job. I worked at a diner on weekends and after school. I saved every penny. I bought a rusted, 20-year-old hatchback from a neighbor for $800. It smelled like wet dog and the heater didn't work. My parents hated it. "That thing is an eyesore in the driveway," Mom complained. "Park it on the street." So I did. I parked my car on the street while Chloe's car sat in the garage, collecting dust, waiting for her to come home once a month. The final blow of my high school years, the one that really hardened my heart, was the college essay. I wanted to get into a good university. I knew my parents weren't going to pay for it. They had spent their college fund on Chloe's tuition at a private liberal arts college where she was currently failing 2 classes and majoring in general studies. I needed a scholarship. I needed a full ride. There was a statewide essay contest. The prize was a full scholarship to the state university. It was prestigious. It was competitive. I spent 3 months writing that essay. The topic was overcoming adversity. I wrote about growing up in the shadow. I didn't name names, but I wrote about the feeling of being invisible. I wrote about the science fair. I wrote about the rusted bike. I poured my soul onto the paper. It was the best thing I had ever written. I printed it out. I left it on the dining room table to proofread it one last time before submitting it. The next day, I came home from school. I walked into the kitchen. My mom was sitting at the table with Chloe, who was home for the weekend. They were reading my essay. My heart stopped. "What are you doing?" I asked. Chloe looked up. Her eyes were red. She was crying. "How could you write this?" Chloe sobbed. She waved the paper at me. "You make me look like a monster. You make Mom and Dad look like bad parents." It's just an essay," I stammered. "It's about my perspective." My mom stood up. She was furious. Her face was tight with anger. "This is a betrayal, Audrey," Mom spat. "Airing our dirty laundry, telling strangers that we don't love you. How dare you?" "It's the truth," I yelled. It was the first time I had raised my voice in years. "It's how I feel." "It is selfish," Mom yelled back. "If you submit this, you will humiliate your sister. You will humiliate this family." She took my essay. She ripped it in half. Then she ripped it again. "You are not submitting this," Mom said. "Write something else. Write about, I don't know, write about volunteering, but you are not submitting this garbage." I stood there, watching the pieces of my hard work flutter to the floor. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But I knew it wouldn't matter. They didn't care about my scholarship. They cared about their image. They cared about Chloe's feelings. I didn't submit the essay. I wrote a generic one about working at the diner. It was fine. It was boring. I didn't win the scholarship. I got into the university anyway based on my grades. But I didn't get the full ride. I had to take out loans. I had to work 2 jobs. When I moved into my dorm room freshman year, nobody helped me. Chloe had moved in 2 years prior. My parents had rented a U-Haul. They had spent the whole weekend setting up her room, buying her matching bedding, hanging curtains, filling her mini fridge. For me, "We're busy this weekend," Dad said. "You have your little car. You can fit your clothes in there." I drove myself to college. I carried my boxes up 3 flights of stairs alone. I set up my bed alone. I sat on the bare mattress in the empty room and looked out the window. I saw other parents hugging their kids in the parking lot. I saw moms crying. I saw dads handing their daughters tool kits and mace. I had nothing. I had my loans. I had my old car. And I had the burning, cold realization that I was an orphan with living parents. I swallowed the disappointment. It was a familiar taste by now. It tasted like ash. I told myself it's okay. I'll succeed anyway. I'll show them. I'll graduate with honors. I'll make them proud. I was so stupid. I still wanted their approval. Even after everything, I still thought there was a finish line where they would finally clap for me. I didn't know yet that the finish line kept moving. I didn't know that even on my graduation day, the day I had worked 4 years for, they would find a way to take the spotlight away from me one last time. But that was coming. The ultimate betrayal was just around the corner. And this time, it wouldn't just hurt me. It would destroy us. 3 weeks. That was all the time I had left before the ceremony. I had already bought my cap and gown. I had ironed the sash. I had reserved a table at a nice restaurant for a celebratory lunch afterwards. I was going to pay for it myself, of course, but I wanted us to be together. It was a Tuesday evening when I called them to finalize the logistics. I wanted to know what time they would be driving down so I could meet them at their hotel. I dialed the house phone. Mom picked up on the 3rd ring. "Hello," she sounded distracted. I could hear the TV in the background. "Hey Mom, it's Audrey," I said, trying to keep my voice cheerful. "Oh, hi Audrey." Her tone didn't lift, it went flat. "I'm just calling to check on the plan for graduation weekend," I said. "I wanted to know if you guys booked the hotel near campus or if you're staying further out." There was a silence on the other end, a long, heavy silence. "Mom," I asked. "Audrey," she started, and I knew. I knew instantly from the tone of her voice. It was the same tone she used when she told me they couldn't come to my play, or my award ceremony, or my birthday dinner. "Audrey, listen," she said. "We've been talking." "Talking about what?" My hand tightened around my phone. "Your sister. She's been having a really hard time lately," Mom said. "Her job is stressful and she's just feeling very down. She's been depressed, Audrey." "Okay," I said slowly. "I'm sorry she's sad, but what does that have to do with my graduation?" "Well," Mom sighed, "we decided that what the family really needs right now is a reset, a break. So Dad and I booked a trip to a resort in Mexico for the three of us, for me, Dad, and Chloe." The world seemed to stop spinning. "You booked a trip?" I repeated. "When?" "The flight is next Thursday," she said. "But that's graduation weekend," I said. My voice sounded small, like I was 7 years old again. "Mom, that's the weekend I graduate." I know," she said quickly, dismissively. "But the dates for the resort were non-negotiable. It was a special package. And frankly, Audrey, we just thought you would understand. You're always so capable. You know how fragile Chloe is right now. She needs this sun and relaxation." "We all do." My dad picked up the extension line. He must have been listening. "Audrey," Dad's voice was gruff. "Look, don't make your mother feel guilty. This trip is important for the family's mental health. Chloe is really struggling." "I'm graduating from college," I said. I felt tears pricking my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I am the first person in this family to get a degree. And you're going to a resort." "It's just a ceremony, Audrey," Dad said. "It's sitting in a hot stadium for 3 hours listening to boring speeches. We can celebrate with you when we get back. We'll do a dinner or something." "You won't be back for 2 weeks," I whispered. "We sent a card," Mom said. "Look, we have to go, we're packing, just have a good day, okay? Call us next week." "They didn't even ask," I said to the empty air in my apartment. "They didn't even ask if I was okay." I realized then that they hadn't just double-booked, they had made a choice. They looked at my biggest achievement, and they looked at a vacation with my sister, and the vacation won. I wasn't even in the competition. I hung up the phone. I sat on my couch in the dark. I waited for the sobbing to start. I waited for the rage, but it didn't come. Instead, a strange calm washed over me. It was a cold, metallic feeling. It was the sound of a lock clicking shut. For 22 years, I had been begging for a seat at their table. I had been trying to earn my ticket into their family. But tonight, they had made it perfectly clear. I wasn't invited. And if I wasn't invited to their family, they were no longer entitled to mine. I stood up. I wiped a single tear from my cheek, and I picked up my phone again. I had one best friend, Sarah. We had met freshman year in the dorms and had been inseparable ever since. Sarah knew about my family. She had seen the way they ignored my calls. She had seen me cry on my birthdays when they forgot to send a card. Sarah's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, were the opposite of mine. They were loud, warm, and present. They drove 5 hours just to have lunch with Sarah on a random Tuesday. They sent care packages with cookies for both of us. I dialed the Miller's house number. I knew Sarah was there for the weekend visiting them. "Hello," Mrs. Miller answered. Her voice was cheerful. "Hi, Mrs. Miller, it's Audrey," I said. My voice cracked. I couldn't help it. The calmness was breaking a little now that I heard a kind voice. "Audrey, how are you, sweetie? Are you excited for the big day?" That broke me. I let out a sob. "Audrey, what's wrong?" Her voice instantly shifted to pure concern. "Honey, what happened?" I told her everything. I told her about the phone call. I told her about the resort in Mexico. I told her that my parents were choosing a tan over my diploma. I didn't try to make it sound better than it was. I just laid the ugly truth out on the table. "I'm going to be alone," I choked out. "I'm going to walk across that stage and nobody is going to be there for me." There was silence on the line for a moment. But it wasn't the heavy, dismissive silence of my mother. It was a silence filled with shock and anger. "Oh, honey," Mrs. Miller said softly. I heard her put the phone down on the counter. "Bob, Sarah, come here," I heard shuffling, and then I was on speakerphone. Sarah and Mr. Miller were there too. They made me repeat the story. "That is unconscionable," Mr. Miller said, his voice deep and angry. They are abandoning you for a vacation." "Yes," I whispered. "Well," Mrs. Miller said. Her voice was firm. It had a steeliness to it that I had never heard before. "You are not going to be alone, Audrey. Absolutely not." "We're coming," Sarah said immediately. Obviously I was coming, but now we're all coming. "But, you guys have limited tickets," I said. "You have your own family coming for Sarah." "We have extra tickets," Mrs. Miller said. "And even if we didn't, we would stand in the parking lot and scream your name." Then Mrs. Miller said something that changed my life. "Audrey, listen to me. Family isn't just whose DNA you have. Family is who shows up. If your parents are too foolish to see what an incredible young woman you are, that is their loss. A massive loss. We would be honored to sit in those seats and claim you as ours for the day, if you'll have us." I felt fresh tears running down my face, but these weren't sad tears. They were relief. "You'd really do that?" I asked. "Try and stop us," Mr. Miller said. "We're bringing the big camera. We're going to embarrass you with how loud we cheer." For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the background child. I didn't feel like the inconvenience. I felt chosen. I wiped my face. "Okay," I said. "Okay, thank you." "Don't thank us," Mrs. Miller said. "We love you, kiddo. Now get some sleep. We've got a graduation to plan." I hung up the phone and looked around my quiet apartment. The pain of my parents' betrayal was still there, like a bruise, but something stronger was growing over it. My parents had made their move. They thought they could discard me and I would just quietly accept it. They thought I would be sitting there alone, sad and invisible. But they didn't know about the Millers. And they definitely didn't know what I was planning next, because I wasn't just going to let the Millers sit in the audience. I had a special role for them. And when my parents turned on the live stream from their hotel room in Mexico, they were going to get the shock of their lives. While my parents were busy booking flights to Mexico and buying swimsuits for Chloe, they were missing the biggest development of my life. Because they never asked me about my day, and because they never asked me about my classes, they had no idea what I had actually been doing for the last 2 years. They thought I was just studying textbooks and taking exams. They thought I was an average student getting an average degree. They were wrong. During my junior year, I had taken a creative writing seminar. It was supposed to be an easy elective, but the professor, Dr. Aris, saw something in my work. He pulled me aside one day after class. "Audrey," he said, holding my final paper, "this isn't just an assignment, this is a voice. You have a voice." He connected me with an internship at a major digital media company in the city. I didn't tell my parents. I knew what they would say. They would say it was a waste of time. They would say I should focus on getting a real job with benefits so I wouldn't be a burden on them. So I did the internship in secret. I worked nights. I worked weekends. I wrote scripts. I edited content. And 6 months ago, one of my projects, a documentary series about hidden poverty in wealthy suburbs, was picked up for development. It was huge. The company didn't just want to buy the script. They wanted to hire me. They offered me a full-time position starting the Monday after graduation. The starting salary was more than my dad made. I wanted to tell them. God, I wanted to tell them so bad. When I got the offer letter, I almost called my mom. I wanted to hear her say, "Wow, Audrey, we are so proud of you." But then I remembered the resort. I remembered the mental health break for Chloe. I remembered that my success would only be seen as a threat to Chloe's insecurity. If I told them I had a high-paying job, they wouldn't celebrate. They would feel guilty that Chloe was still unemployed. They would tell me to keep it quiet so I didn't upset her, so I kept it to myself. 2 weeks before graduation, the dean of the university called me into his office. "Audrey," he said, smiling, "we have been contacted by the media company you're working with. They want to make a donation to the department in your name, and they want to announce your hiring publicly at the graduation ceremony. It's a showcase of our department's success." I sat in the leather chair, stunned. "Publicly?" "Yes," the dean said. "During the conferral of degrees, it's a special honor. We usually reserve this for the valedictorian, but your achievement is unique. We want to highlight you." He looked at his clipboard. "Now, I see here we have your parents listed as your guests, Mr. and Mrs. Hart. We will want the camera to pan to them when we make the announcement. We want to capture their reaction. Is that okay?" I looked at the dean. I looked at the name, Mr. and Mrs. Hart, on the paper. I thought about the empty seats. I thought about them drinking margaritas in Cabo while I walked across the stage. I thought about how they had already left. They were gone. They had chosen. "Actually, Dean," I said, my voice steady, "There's a change in the guest list." "Oh," he asked, clicking his pen. "My parents couldn't make it," I said. "They have prior commitments." The dean looked shocked. "For their daughter's graduation?" "Yes," I said, "but I do have family coming, real family." I took the pen from his hand. I crossed out my parents' names, and in clear block letters I wrote, "Mr. Robert Miller and Mrs. Susan Miller. These are the people who supported me," I said. "These are the people I want the camera to find." The dean smiled softly. "Understood, Audrey. We will make sure they get the VIP seating." I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had ever felt in my life. My parents thought they were punishing me by not showing up. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about my place in the hierarchy, but they didn't know I had rewritten the script. They didn't know that by leaving me, they had given me the stage. Graduation morning was hot. It was one of those humid, sticky days where the air feels heavy. I woke up in my apartment alone. My roommates had already left to meet their families for breakfast. The apartment was quiet. Usually, this silence would have made me cry. I would have imagined my mom making pancakes or my dad pacing around in his suit. But today, the silence felt like focus. It felt like the quiet before a battle. I put on my dress. I put on my gown. I adjusted the cap in the mirror. I looked at myself. I didn't look like the scared little girl with the rusty bike anymore. I looked like a woman who survived. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "Thinking of you today. Hope the ceremony isn't too long. We are having a great time. The beach is beautiful. Chloe is finally relaxing. Send us a pic. Love, Mom. No congratulations. No, I'm sorry we aren't there. Just a request for a picture and an update on Chloe's relaxation." I didn't reply. I turned my phone off. I drove to the stadium. The parking lot was a sea of families. There were balloons, flowers, signs. I walked through the crowd, head high. And then I saw them. Standing near the entrance, holding a massive bouquet of yellow sunflowers, my favorite, were the Millers. Mr. Miller was wearing a suit and tie, sweating in the heat but smiling ear to ear. Mrs. Miller was wearing a beautiful blue dress. Sarah was holding a blowhorn. "Audrey," Sarah screamed, blasting the horn. Mrs. Miller ran over and hugged me so hard I almost lost my breath. "Look at you," she said, tearing up. "You look beautiful, honey. You look so smart." "We got front row," Mr. Miller said, winking. "VIP section. Apparently you're a VIP." "Something like that," I smiled. We went inside. The stadium was packed with 5,000 people. I took my seat with the graduates on the floor. The Millers were escorted to the special family section near the stage. I sat there for 2 hours listening to speeches. I watched hundreds of names get called. I watched students wave to their parents. Finally, it was my turn. The dean walked up to the podium. The room went quiet. "Before we continue," the dean said, his voice booming over the speakers, "we have a special recognition. A student who has not only excelled academically, but has already secured a lead position at Global Media Studios based on her groundbreaking documentary work." A murmur went through the crowd. That was a big deal. "Please welcome," the dean said, "Audrey Hart." I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I forced myself to walk. I walked up the stairs. The lights were blinding. I walked to the center of the stage. The dean handed me my diploma. Then he leaned into the microphone. "We know that success doesn't happen in a vacuum," the dean said. "It takes a village. It takes a family who believes in you. Audrey has asked us to specially recognize the parents who supported her through late nights, financial struggles, and hard work." I looked at the camera. I knew it was live streaming. I knew the link had been sent to all the families. I knew my parents were probably half watching it in their hotel room while getting ready for dinner. "Will the family of Audrey Hart please stand?" the dean said. The giant screen behind me switched from my face to the audience. The camera zoomed in. It didn't show empty seats. It showed Mr. and Mrs. Miller. They stood up. Mrs. Miller was crying openly now, clutching the sunflowers. Mr. Miller was clapping his hands high in the air, beaming with pride. Sarah was jumping up and down. The caption on the giant screen and on the live stream read, "Audrey's parents, Robert and Susan Miller." The crowd erupted. The applause was deafening. It was a wave of noise that washed over me. I looked at the Millers. I looked at the camera. And I smiled. A real, genuine smile. I knew in that exact second that somewhere in Mexico, a phone had just dropped to the floor. The aftermath was instant. We went to lunch at a steakhouse. The Millers paid for everything. We toasted with champagne. I felt like I was floating, but while we were eating, the internet was working. Sarah checked her phone halfway through the meal. Her eyes went wide. "Audrey," she said. "Oh my God, look." She turned the screen to me. Someone had clipped the video of the ceremony, the part where the dean talks about supportive family and then cuts to the Millers. But the caption on the video wasn't about my job. The caption read, "When your real parents skip your graduation for a vacation, but your best friend's parents step up. Number found family, number justice, number bad parents." It had 200,000 views, and it was climbing. The comments were brutal. "Who leaves their kid on graduation day? Those people in the crowd look so proud. I thought they were her real parents until I read the caption. Imagine missing this moment. The parents are trash. I'm crying, the way the mom is looking at her." My phone, which I had turned back on, started to vibrate. 1 missed call, Mom, 2 missed calls, Dad, 3 missed calls, Chloe, then a text from Chloe. "WTF, Audrey, why are people tagging me in this video? Why are the Millers listed as your parents?" Then a text from Mom, "Answering your phone now. This is humiliating. People are calling us." I put my phone face down on the table. "Is everything okay?" Mrs. Miller asked, touching my hand. "Better than okay," I said. "They're watching." By the time we finished dessert, the video had hit 1 million views. A local news station had shared it. It was a feel-good story about community support, but everyone in our small town knew the subtext. Everyone knew the Harts were in Mexico. My parents were being roasted alive in the court of public opinion. People who knew them, neighbors, church members, coworkers were commenting, "Wait, isn't that the Hart's daughter? Where's Stan and Linda? I saw Linda post a picture from Cabo yesterday, they skipped it. Wow, just wow." My dad left a voicemail. I listened to it in the bathroom. His voice sounded panicked. "Audrey, pick up, this is a misunderstanding. You need to post something clarifying that we are away for a family emergency. People are saying terrible things on your mother's Facebook. Fix this." A family emergency. He wanted me to lie. He wanted me to cover for them again. He wanted me to be the good daughter who cleaned up their mess. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I thought about the rusty bike. I thought about the science fair. I thought about the empty seat at the dinner table. I deleted the voicemail. I walked back out to the table. "Ready to go?" I asked the Millers. "Ready," Mr. Miller said. "We're so proud of you, Audrey." "I know," I said. "I finally know what that feels like." My parents cut their trip short. They flew back 2 days early. I guess it's hard to relax on the beach when your entire social circle is calling you a deadbeat parent. I was at my apartment, packing up my things to move to the city for my new job. I heard a car door slam outside, then heavy footsteps on the stairs, then banging on my door. "Audrey, open this door." It was my dad. I opened the door. They were standing there, Mom, Dad, and Chloe. They looked sunburnt and furious. They pushed past me into the living room. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mom screamed. She wasn't asking how I was. She was shaking a printed screenshot of the viral video at me. "I can't even go to the grocery store." Mrs. Gable commented on my post asking if I enjoyed abandoning my child. "It's a PR nightmare." "You made us look like monsters," Chloe chimed in. She was scrolling on her phone. "Someone found my Instagram and commented, 'Selfish sister.' You need to delete your account, Audrey." I stood by the kitchen island. I didn't offer them water. I didn't offer them a seat. "I didn't post the video," I said calmly. "Strangers did." "But you set it up," Dad yelled. His face was red. "You gave the dean the Millers' names. You erased us." "You erased yourselves," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through their shouting. "You booked the trip, Dad. You chose the resort. You told me to my face that you had other plans." "We are your parents," Mom cried. Tears started running down her face, the weaponized tears she always used to get her way. "We raised you, we fed you. And you give the credit to Susan Miller. That woman is a stranger." "She was there," I said. "She was sitting in the chair you left empty." "It was one weekend," Mom sobbed. "We have been there for 22 years. "No," I said. "You haven't." The room went silent. "You weren't there for the science fair," I said, counting on my fingers. "You weren't there for the debate finals. You weren't there when I broke my arm when I was 12 and drove myself to the urgent care because you were watching Chloe's recital. You have never been there." "That is not true," Dad sputtered. "You're exaggerating, you're being dramatic." "I'm done," I said. "I'm done being the background character in Chloe's life." "So what? You're just going to cut us off," Chloe scoffed. "Good luck paying for your apartment without Dad's help." I laughed. It was a dry, humorless laugh. "I don't need Dad's help," I said. "I have a job, a career, the one the dean announced on stage." The one you would have known about if you had asked me a single question about my life in the last 6 months. They looked confused. They didn't even know what job I was talking about. I'm moving tomorrow, I said. I'm paying for it myself. I'm handling it myself, just like I always have. Audrey, please, Mom changed her tone. She saw that her anger wasn't working, so she switched to guilt. We're a family. Families forgive. We made a mistake. We'll make it up to you. We can have a big dinner tonight. Just post something online saying it was a misunderstanding. Please, for the family. She reached out to touch my arm. I took a step back. No, I said. What do you mean no? Dad demanded. No dinner, no post, no forgiveness, not this time. I walked to the door and opened it. You should go, I have packing to do. You're making a mistake, Dad warned. If you walk away now, don't expect us to be there when you fail. I don't expect you to be there at all, I said. That's the point. They stared at me. For the first time, they looked small. They looked like people who had lost something valuable and didn't know how to get it back. They walked out. I closed the door, I locked the deadbolt. And then I went back to packing. It has been 5 years since that day. I live in the city now. I'm a senior producer at the media company. I have a beautiful apartment with big windows and plants that I actually remember to water. My relationship with my parents is polite. That's the best word for it. We talk on Christmas. We talk on birthdays. It's a 10-minute call. We talk about the weather. We talk about traffic. We don't talk about my life, and I don't listen to their drama about Chloe. Chloe is still living in their basement. She's on her 5th career path. My parents are still rescuing her, still paying her bills, still exhausting themselves trying to make her happy. They look 10 years older than they are. They tried, for a while, to get back in. When I won an Emmy for my documentary work last year, they sent flowers. They posted about it on Facebook. So proud of our daughter. I didn't comment. I didn't like the post. I just let it sit there. I realized that they don't miss me. They miss the prop. They miss the easy child who made them look good without requiring any effort. But I don't need them to look good anymore. I spent Thanksgiving with the Millers this year. We cooked a huge turkey. We played board games. We laughed until our sides hurt. At the dinner table, Mr. Miller raised a glass. To Audrey, he said, we are so lucky to have you in our lives. To family, I said, clinking my glass against his. I looked around the table. I saw Sarah, my best friend. I saw her husband. I saw her parents, who treat me like their own daughter. I realized that I wasn't a victim anymore. I wasn't the girl with the rusty bike. I wasn't the invisible student. I was the author of my own story. I learned a hard lesson that day on the graduation stage, but it was the most important lesson of my life. You cannot force people to love you. You cannot earn your way into someone's heart if they don't have room for you. You can scream and beg and be perfect, and it won't change a thing. But the good news, the really good news, you can choose. You can walk away from the people who hurt you. You can find the people who see you. You can find the people who will drive 5 hours to sit in a hot stadium just to cheer for your name. I still have the photo from graduation day, the one of me and the Millers smiling with the sunflowers. I keep it on my desk. It reminds me that blood makes you related. But loyalty, love, showing up when it matters, that makes you family. And for the first time in my life, I have plenty of it. If you are watching this and you are the background child, if you are the one who is always overlooked, always quiet, always waiting for your turn, stop waiting. Stop trying to buy a ticket to a show that doesn't want you. Pack up your things, open the door, and go find the people who will clap for you. They are out there, and they are waiting to meet you. My name is Audrey, and I finally chose myself.